and all right, just got the recording notification. Frontier is specialized. Well, we specialize in electromobility and battery electric vehicle infrastructure. Frontier focuses a lot more on both heavy goods movement and trucking, as well as alternative fuels that are not battery electric vehicles. And then we've also got another firm called Mariposa Planning, and they are going to be working with us on some aspects of community engagement and equity planning. So those are the three consultants on the consultant team. And then I'm going to introduce Isaiah with SJCOG, who is the project manager for San Joaquin COG. And it looks like there might be one or two other folks from SJCOG that you may want to introduce as well.
Sure, yeah, we have Jay Halva sitting in. He's another assistant planner at COG. Just wanted to get a better idea of what's happening with the AFVP.
Okay, and then if I can get, since we've got, so where did the participants list go? Since we got a small number of folks at the moment, might as well do some introductions. I think the first person to log on was Hiro Fong. Can you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Hiro Fong. I'm from Caltrans Develop and Deployment Division, filling in for Ed Hardiman.
Okay, great, thank you. How about A. Sajor?
Trying to get this to come on, see if it's working. I'm Antonio Sager, Stockton Police Department, City of Stockton. I'm over the department's fleet and logistical side, and I was invited to come for, you invited Catherine Nance, who's our Deputy Chief of Operations, so I'm filling in for her to see how we fit into this and to learn. Thank you.
Great, appreciate it. Let's see, Kevin Mayos.
Hi, I'm the fleet manager for San Joaquin County, so I'm just here to participate and hopefully, we'll get some infrastructure out of this deal ourselves, and just looking to get our plan in motion here.
Great. James Thompson. Okay, if James is not available to speak at the moment. Warren Sun.
Hi, my name is Warren Sun. I'm a Division Director of the Operation for San Joaquin County Office of Education. We got this invitation and I just want to participate to learn the information.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. So again, this is a informational meeting on the San Joaquin COG Alternative Fuels Vision Plan. We had one yesterday for private fleets. We are having this one today for public fleet operators. And we appreciate you guys coming. We are recording this, and we will also be providing, we will be emailing out the PowerPoint slides and a series of questions that we are going to be presenting to you folks a little bit later during this meeting, and hoping to get some interactive discussion on those questions. But we will also be following up and asking for input following the meeting, for both those who are not able to attend and those who are able to attend, if you'd rather communicate back with us via email or survey. Okay, can we go to the next? Okay, so we've gone through introductions. We're going to talk a little bit about the project vision and goals, touch on the regulatory context. That's some regulation changes that have taken place in recent months. We're going to talk a little bit about existing conditions and what's on the ground today. The discussion section, that's where I was talking about these questions that we're going to be asking folks to weigh in on. And then we will talk a little bit about next steps and again, how you can interactively work with us and help us feed this project moving forward after this meeting. We're also going to be doing a number more of these types of meetings with different groups. We've already done one a couple weeks ago or a few weeks ago with some of the different agencies involved, and we're going to be doing a number more as well. And the idea is that we'll get as much information from as varied a group of folks as possible. And we're going to amass all the opinions and thoughts together. And, you know, hopefully everybody will be able to feed this plan. So if we can go to the next slide. Again, this is just showing the three firms that are working with SJCOG on this project. Can we move to the next one? So the project vision, as you see here, is to prepare the county for a transportation future dominated by emissions-free modes of personal mobility, public transportation, and goods movement. And included in that, obviously, is our public fleets, are the fleets of the different jurisdictions and agencies in the area, working towards decreasing greenhouse gas emissions, abiding by increasing regulations within the state and at the federal level, and increasing, you know, air quality in the area, you know, by looking at all different modes of transportation. Okay, we can go to the next one. Project goals include assessing existing infrastructure. ZEV stands for zero emission vehicle, by the way, with a focus on unincorporated rural areas between cities that experience significant interregional travel. So we're trying to look a lot at longer distance travel with heavier vehicles. You know, a lot of the travel that can result in a large percentage of greenhouse gas emissions and fuel usage. We want to identify key challenges, gaps, and barriers to interregional travel. And when we're talking about gaps and barriers, we're not just talking about physical ones like rivers and bridges and viaducts and things like that. We're talking about gaps and barriers to groups of people, to socioeconomic groups, to various demographics, to fleets being able to, you know, to either charge or fuel their vehicles, and what challenges and barriers you see in moving to a more sustainable fleet. And then again, following up on that, identifying where equity issues currently exist with access to EV charging, as well as alternate fueling additionally. But really the big thing that is pushing planning statewide and federal and nationwide in terms of cleaner fuel vehicle planning is looking at equity and making sure that agencies are doing the best they can to make sure the vehicles are available to the most people possible, that the cleaner vehicles are being implemented and put on roadways where people are at highest risk, and especially with large vehicles often traveling through areas of economic hardship. It's really important to move forward with cleaning the vehicle infrastructure that travels through those areas. Okay, next. So like I said, there have been a number of recent regulations that have been passed or are in the process of being passed toward the end of improving air quality, primarily from transportation emission sources. And specifically for this meeting, the two main ones that have been passed recently that are of interest are the advanced clean trucks regulation, which is working towards mandating that vehicle manufacturers must sell, a certain amount of their vehicles at a rising level to be zero emission vehicles, whether it be electric or hydrogen or any of the other fuel types that we'll be talking about. And then also reporting for large entities and fleets where, and this is kind of a moving target right now, but where fleets are going to be required moving through time to increase the numbers and percentages of vehicles that are clean vehicles. The other one is advanced clean fleets, which again is moving towards a zero emission fleet. By 2045, it's got a goal of achieving a full zero emission fleet by 2045 and moving towards that goal through time. And we can provide more information on those and links to some sites that give a little more information on that. Our goal here isn't to go too deep into those regulations, but just talk about them a bit in terms of context. Okay, next. So now we're going to go a little bit into some existing conditions work that we have done. We are still in the process of writing and finalizing an existing conditions report, but this is going to show you some of the data that is involved in that report and included in that report. So if you want to go to next. So this is showing it's showing where the highest traffic volumes are in the county. If you look, the purple, big thick purple lines are state highways and interstates that are carrying daily over 100,000 vehicles a day. You can see that consists mainly of I-5, Highway 205, portions of 120 and portions of 99. Then in the 50,000 to 100,000 range are the dark burgundy ones, which are the rest of I-5, 99, and 120. And you can see kind of the volumes go down from there on the state highways, moving out from the urban center of the county. But as you can see, the highest volumes are definitely in the core of the county surrounding Stockton, Lathrop, Manteca, and then heading west toward the Bay Area. Also shown on this map are areas that have been identified as disadvantaged communities, both by the county and by the state. The CES that you see here, the colors that you see are scores on what's called Cal EnviroScreen, which is a kind of complex series of risk factors that are all documented separately and together and then combined to form an overall score. And those different factors can include transportation, food deserts, areas of high air quality issues, and a lot of other areas of higher minority representation. So you can see the areas in and around Stockton tend to be on the higher percentage scale of the Cal EnviroScreen, meaning those areas are areas that are at higher risk. The areas that are orange and yellow are areas that are still at a risk, but not as high as the peach colored areas. And then moving out to the gray are areas that have not been identified specifically. And one thing to keep in mind is these are identified by census block group. So because in some areas, in some of the rural areas, the census block group areas, the census designation areas are much bigger and larger geographically, that could be why you see that whole area on the west side is pink. Whereas it might not be a highly populated area. So the larger areas don't necessarily mean areas of higher population. And then also shown here in the hatching patterns are 1 mile buffers of all of the interchanges, the larger interchanges with the state highway and interstate system, because these are very important in the federal and state planning process where electric vehicle corridors are being identified. And the goal is to have charging infrastructure in those areas or as close to those areas as possible. We can go to the next slide. This map is showing the existing electric vehicle infrastructure. So this is for battery electric vehicles. This is showing both level 2 plugs, which are the blue ones, and DC fast chargers, also known by some as level 3, which are the pink and red dots. So just in general, a level 2 is the type of charger that you would tend to plug in your vehicle overnight, and it charges overnight, and in 8 to 12 hours, you would be able to get a full charge. Whereas DC fast chargers are things like the Tesla superchargers, the Electrify America chargers, which are designed, they're much higher voltage, they're designed for a much faster charge. Depending on vehicle, speeds can range from half hour, 40 minutes to get up to about an 80% charge, down to, you know, some of them charging even quicker now as the infrastructure improves and the vehicles improve. And then also shown on this, I was talking about the national and state EV corridor designations. The roadways that you see in green are identified as EV corridors that are considered ready. And what that means, that are NEVI, which is National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure ready, which is saying that those highways have at least 4 DC fast chargers at 150 kilowatts or better, which is some of the higher speed DC fast chargers, but it has at least 4 within a 50-mile range. So the green highways do have that. The red highways are highways that have been identified and are considered pending because they do not have the charging infrastructure required to be considered ready. So they don't have the 4 or more DC fast chargers within 50 miles. And the one thing to consider, if you do see along Highway 120, you do see there are red dots there. Those are actually the Tesla superchargers near there. And the Tesla superchargers, because at least from now, they only charge Tesla vehicles, those are not included in the designation. Move on to the next one. So this next one is a similar map where it shows the locations of other alternative fuels, including compressed natural gas, liquefied natural gas, renewable natural gas, liquefied petroleum gas, and hydrogen. At the moment, as of now, there are no hydrogen stations in the county. There are at least some of all the other types, but as you can see, they're definitely fewer and further between and centered mostly in the Stockton area. The line colorings on this also represents the federal designations for CNG corridor, LNG corridor, LPG corridor, and hydrogen corridor, and whether those are considered ready or not, ready or pending. And I know there's a lot to see here because we've got a lot of different lines next to each other. It looks more like a transit map, but the idea was just to give an idea of which corridors are what status. But for actual mapping and documentation, we would look at them separately because it can be a little bit tough to see them all at once. Okay, next. So I guess before we get into the discussion, which is us asking you questions and hoping that you guys can give us some of your thoughts on us asking you questions. Does anybody have any particular questions on what we've shown so far?
Feel free to unmute yourself and yeah, ask questions.
And if not, if you don't have questions right now, we will again be sending out information, surveys and such. And if you'd rather ask questions via email, that is perfectly fine. And then also, we're going to be showing you a little bit later a website that we've got set up where you can either make statements or ask questions at a geographic level, looking at a map of the area and actually pinpointing your thoughts in different locations. So let's go to the discussion part. And we've got a series of 3 questions that we're asking, and we're hoping to get some interaction here. It's a small group, so I know it might be a little bit tough, but we're hoping to get some interaction. And if again, following up, we will be sending these questions out to everybody, both you guys and anybody else who is not physically on the call. And we're really going to be hoping for insight into these questions and any other things you'd like to bring up. So the first question, I'm just gonna read it here, is what steps has your, and it says company or agency, but it's for this purpose, it's agency, already initiated for shifting to alternative fuel vehicles? And again, that includes both battery electric vehicles and other fuel sources. And if nothing has been initiated yet, which I think that was probably more directed toward the private fleets, because there are private fleets that have not done anything yet. But I think most public fleets, or all public fleets, have already at least begun the planning process. What implementation plans are you currently aware of? So please feel free to unmute yourself and let us know your thoughts.
Kevin, I guess I'll chime in. We've kind of been on alternative fuel plan for quite some time, actually. We were, received about $2 million worth of grant money so far to buy vehicles. We kind of stepped in with the hybrids first, then we moved to plug-ins, the Bolt and the Prius plug-ins, and we've got about 12 Bolts right now. I've got a Danar. If you're familiar with a Danar, it's kind of like a piece of electric construction equipment that you can also use as storage and charging. And we've got a couple of other small ones. We picked up a Tuatara, which is like a little off-road side-by-side EV, pretty rugged. It's 4-wheel drive. It's got locking discs, front and rear, hydraulic dumping bed. So kind of a cool unit, a little bit more heavier duty than your I was trying to think, seeing those Taylor Dunn carts. It's a little bit heavier duty than that. We've got 7.2 kilowatt chargers. We've got about 27 of those that we put in with grant money. Those seem to work well. We got about 10 L1 chargers that are hooked to our solar grid that kind of came with our solar array that's at the public works yard. So we put some stuff in. I was able to get a grant from PG&E to put our 20 chargers at our downtown garage, and that was certainly an eye-opening project. We had to actually get a transformer and put it in the street and cut off the power for several blocks on a Sunday morning. Quite the project.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, the cost of the thing, was over about $300K. Thank God it was all grant money. Our cost to the agency was about $2,000, and mainly that was just for monitoring for the first year. So we came out smelling like a rose on that one.
And that was all level 2, you said, correct?
Yeah, all level 2s.
And are those publicly available as well, or are those strictly for
those
fleet?
are fleet only, David. So yeah, kind of a tough one because the parking in that garage is it's kind of tough. It's it's got our pool cars in there. So if we tried to do something different, I think it'd be really difficult. to have public or even workplace in there, because we got to get cars out to get our cars back in at some point.
Okay,
That would be a mess. So definitely looking to, get it out on our work sites. We kind of look at, yeah, we probably need to do some at least workplace and fleet charging at our sites that we can provide public. If we have enough room to do that, we'd certainly like to do that. I see a lot of grant money's kind of tied to having a public option available. So that's certainly been in our plan. I think our biggest obstacle I found in our sites is there's just not enough power at the site to put in chargers.
okay,
Couple, downtown, I put 2 phases of chargers in there, and each one required a transformer. One was smaller, the other one was huge, obviously. And as I go to our sites here, they are, most of our buildings are built in the 60s and 70s. They've been added on and added on and added on, and man, power's just out on the site, and then just available grid. I think those seem to be the biggest challenges as far as rolling it out. And of course, getting buy-in with our facility departments been something we need to work on.
and when you said you had to add transformers, was any of that DC fast, or was that all level 2?
That's all level 2.
Okay.
We put a DC fast in for our DANR out at our landfill, and we haven't even got that thing up yet. I ended up buying another backup charger just to keep the thing charged up, but that's been a challenge. That was a charge point charger that actually was an ABB, but we just have some challenges getting it to work with the DANR and working with our existing infrastructure. Also, we're trying to do it so we're trying to avoid a large monitoring charge, because some of those DC fast chargers, commercial mode, they're $5,000 a month, or I'm sorry, $5,000 a year for monitoring. So it's kind of pricey for one charger. So we're trying to work on a lower cost option that was more like, more in line with like a couple $100 a year. So I don't know. We're still working on that. But yeah, we have yet to install a DC fast charger. I was kind of hoping we could exploit a site that's out at Highway 12 and I-5, where we have a chunk of land out there that used to have a lift station for sewer there, and now it's just a transfer site. So we got a transformer sitting there and a empty piece of ground. So might want to keep that one in mind.
Okay, and that actually is one of the areas that we're planning on getting out. We were actually supposed to do it tomorrow, but with the heat, we've pushed it back. But we were planning on getting out and to a couple of the truck stops, including the one out there at Flag City, and talking to them about about needs and such at those areas. So that's good to know.
Okay, but other than that, we're just working on our plan. We're taking a look at our fleet. Where's it going? What's the type of vehicle? What's the vocation? Very much aligned with the reporting that we turned into the state. So, when I look at it, it's gonna be a tough grind. We talk about 50% of our buy for 3/4 ton truck on up, starting 2024. That's a challenge, definitely.
Okay. Well, yeah, please, obviously feel free to, we're taking notes on what you're saying here right now, but if you've got particular concerns, that you'd like to get in writing, please get them to us. So those kinds of concerns can be, can at least be documented and hopefully addressed physically in the plan.
Thanks, David.
Yeah, great. Appreciate that. That was really good. Alex, did you want to ask any particular, did you need any clarification on anything you were taking notes on that you might have missed?
Nope.
All right. Anybody else want to chime in on that topic? Okay, not hearing anybody at the moment. Let's move on to the next. And again, if somebody happened to step away and wants to talk about the previous topic, feel free to chime in and we can always do that. Okay, so let's move on to question 2. And I think, I think you've already, thank you. I think Kevin, you've already talked a little bit about this, in terms of barriers you perceive agency faces for adoption of alternative fuel vehicles. You're talking about obviously the cost, the difficulty with implementing in terms of, finding power. Does anybody, or do you have any particular additional thoughts on this question, or, maybe talking about it in terms of not just electric, but any of the other fuel types that you guys might be adopting?
Well, David, I guess I'll chime in again. This is Kevin. So, a couple things. So we brought in renewable diesel in 2015. And here's when I kind of lack of understanding why we just said, everybody's not burning this stuff. I mean, it was just a drop-in fuel, easy. I received a little pushback from our users. Once we started using it, it was just a no-brainer. As far as like barriers for adoption, some of it is just the customer's got to get his job done. Obviously law enforcement's kind of spared from this whole thing. I'm sure that our sheriff's department, we're going to be putting blue lights and sirens on everything, even a Cushman, right? We're going to make an emergency vehicle. But when you look at public works and some of these vocations that we have there, this is going to be a tough adoption because there's a lot of products that just aren't available right now. And the state's, counting on manufacturers, coming to the table with new trucks. I mean, bread and butter, my construction business here is a 10-wheel dump truck. I've yet to see one that's viable or even close to being viable. The room on the frame is, that's definitely prime real estate for hydraulic tanks and all the other equipment. Obviously the RAM has to go on the frame. So not a whole lot of room for batteries or maybe even a hydrogen generator and tanks. So that's definitely gonna be a problem. When you figure, the space of the 100-gallon diesel tank right there, underneath the driver's door, not taking up a whole lot of room, and the fuel density of that compared to what we're gonna have to do with electricity. It'd be interesting if we can get a dump truck to work the whole day, especially if it's doing like a paving job or chip seal job where it's doing a lot of idling all day long and kind of moving. That is definitely gonna be a challenge if we're gonna go, 100% electric. Also getting the customer to believe in that thing and getting them to spend, 4 times the amount on this vehicle that they were spending before, to get the same kind of performance. That's also gonna be a tough sell as well. Thank God we got grant money, but that's good for the first one. So definitely I'm looking, another barrier is going to be our funding. We're going to have to increase our funding, our collection from our customers for our ISF's gonna, it's gonna also, we're gonna pay 3 or 4 times more for our vehicles, so our rates are gonna increase. So that's gonna put a lot of cost pressure on our departments that use this kind of stuff. So even for the second or third one, I think grant money is gonna be there for the first one, but we start getting down the road a little bit of ways. Well, this becomes more, ubiquitous to our operation. Then yeah, it's funding's also going to be a barrier.
Okay. Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and that's what we're hearing a lot is folks, saying obviously the cost of the vehicle being higher. I'm definitely curious on the dump truck side of things because I know with refuse trucks and some of the other large vehicles that they have been obviously making strides with either electric or hydrogen or other fuel sources. I did not realize that that dump trucks were not moving forward quite as well as the others. Okay. Anybody else on the call have any thoughts or questions or answers? Okay. All right. And then the final question that we have is, I guess I have to move. Sorry, I have to move the pictures because they're blocking part of the text. So again, Kevin, I think you focused on some of this already as well. But what infrastructure do you think you need to move forward to promote the adoption of vehicles in your agency? And then we're asking, what locations you've already mentioned, one area potentially, what you see, and this, again, we can talk about it here. We can take notes on what you have to say, here, but we also will fill you in on ways that you can answer some of these questions following this meeting. At your leisure, and talk about locations more. But do you see particular infrastructure coming online? Would that help, promote and make these vehicles more acceptable to your users, to your drivers, to your constituents who, yes, may have to be paying more for their services because the vehicles might, that you guys are using, it might be more expensive, but maybe they can get benefit out of some of these facilities as well as they move into cleaner fuel vehicles as well. Do you have any particular thoughts on these three questions on the screen?
Well, David, I'll go ahead and chime in. So, ZEV infrastructure, I'll tell you, there's one thing I kind of noticed here, with our employees, because I think what's really, promote adoption is really getting the public to buy these things. So, I have a lot of access to employees. And I'm thinking just to put it out there, yes, if we had chargers, I think we could get people to buy cars. And let me kind of elaborate on that. So as we rolled out alternative vehicle, fuel vehicles, the Prius was probably our first one. Here's a car that was a little bit unconventional as far as the layout of controls, things like that. Most people are used to pushing a button and putting the shifter in the drive. Prius was a little bit different. It kind of had the gated shifter, you had to move it around, plus the kind of unique way of starting it. So it's kind of different. And we had some pushback on that. But it was interesting is once we got people over some of these humps and becoming familiar with the car, the thing I thought that I found really interesting is we put them in the fleet, people became familiar. Next thing I know, they're showing up in our parking lots, right? So they're driving them up at work, they're having this good experience, especially the Camry hybrid. That one I really saw blow up. We went out and buy, we bought a grip of Camry hybrids put in service in 2007. By 2009, 2010, you're looking in our parking lots and there's a whole bunch of hybrid Camrys out there because here's a car that was more conventional. The driver controls are more conventional, but it was a hybrid. They had gotten used to that technology from the Prius and our Camrys to become comfortable with it to drive it. And I'm pretty sure with the popularity of the Bolt, that the way it is in our pool right now, it's probably our #1 checked out car because everybody wants to check it out and drive it. That if we had infrastructure for it right now, you'd probably start seeing some Bolts show up in our parking lot. So I know on this one, it's kind of a deal where, yeah, if you build it, they'll come. But you got to have something like, people using the car without any risk because they can drive this county car. They don't have to buy it. They get to drive it out, see how it works. And you kind of find out with a Bolt that you don't need to charge it every day. And I think that's something that people didn't expect. That here's a car, it's electric vehicle that almost mimics driving like a gas car, right? Where you can go 2-3 days without having to charge it. And I think when you see people getting that kind of, experience for themselves, that, yeah, it breaks down a lot of the barriers and a lot of the questions because, the unknown, people just start filling in, with their own knowledge if they don't actually have any knowledge. So I think with that kind of stuff, there's nothing like experiencing it yourself, firsthand. So,
well, the interesting there is, what you're not even seeing there when you've got that kind of uptake is, you're not even seeing the people take, the people are, they're driving the vehicle and it might be leading them towards thinking about buying one, but they're also, they're not charging it at home. They're actually not learning that with an electric vehicle, 80% of electric vehicle drivers, if you've got the ability to charge it at home, you just plug it in every night and you've got a full tank, every morning. And maybe they're learning that with the fleet cars, if the fleet cars are charging overnight and they're picking up a fleet car that's always full, I think you can learn a little bit more about that. But yeah, it's interesting kind of the different ways you learn about the vehicles from driving them at work.
definitely.
Sorry, I think I interrupted you. Were starting to say
Oh,
something.
no, you're fine, David. I'm just thinking, what location do I see the most need is where we actually, I think the Blythe for us, the best way to deploy that would be being able to deploy fleet charging, workplace charging at the same place, have it all be able to mixed. I just, what I mean, to me, that would be for us to spur employees to buy it. public wise, you know, the county does have a few places where we do serve the public. A lot of it's downtown, you know, parking's not available, so that'd be a whole different thing, but certainly at, you know, our ag center, public works, we have a little bit more room for that kind of stuff. I think that would be appropriate to try to do, you know, let's do all three. Let's charge fleet cars, public cars, and workplace. But I really think the workplace one is strong, especially for, you know, government agency where people will build, you know, they get that, try that out. And if there's some, you know, you got the infrastructure in, I believe they will use it.
Okay, great. Anybody else? I guess everyone else is in listen mode. If you decide you want to chime in, please let me know. We'd love to hear from you. Okay, well, let's move on to the next. Kevin, yeah, I appreciate all that. That's, you know, I think you kind of ran the gamut from, you know, talking about the largest vehicles that you know might be more difficult to, you know, to convert to, well, not convert, but to move over to alternate fuel versus, you know, the smaller vehicles that, you know, light duty and regular car vehicles that people are driving around for work purposes, and then it leading to potentially some changes in, you know, in personal vehicle choice. And I think it's great to hear that you've got that going, and you know, that people are doing that. I mean, even if, you know, back in the day it was a hybrid that, you know, it wasn't a plug-in vehicle, it still had emissions, but it was, you know, at least it was more efficient. So now that we're moving into, you know, the truly zero emission vehicles that folks can try out at work and hopefully decide to make a change. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So like I said at the beginning, our next steps are we're gonna continue to have more of these types of meetings with different groups of folks. We're gonna be taking notes at all of them, pulling all that together. But we've also got, and I'm gonna go to the next slide. I mentioned the website that we've got online it's called Social Pinpoint, and it's basically a site where we've mapped out the existing charging infrastructure. We've mapped out where the interchanges on the state highways are, mapped out some of the data that we've talked about. And basically, it's called Social Pinpoint. What it means is, you know, it's like sticking a thumbtack on a cork board or sticking a Post-it note on a cork board. All you have to do is go to the site that's listed there, and Alex just shared it in the chat, and it will also be shared as in an email. But basically you can zoom in, you know, this is zoomed all the way out, but you can zoom in as close as, you know, to the block. You can zoom in, you can look and see where the existing charging infrastructure is. You can put pins down there saying, you know, this is where our fleet chargers are that you guys aren't showing, but they're fleet only, you know, just so you guys know this is there and you're not showing it. Or this is where I think it would be very useful. This is where a lot of our people work and we have no charging, and we'd like to be able to get more charging or other fuel sources as well in these areas. You know, any notes can be added to this, and all the notes will be collected and analyzed moving forward once we've gotten a good amount of notes on the site. I will tell you, we were pleasantly surprised on a recent project that we're working on for a smaller city down in San Diego County, where, you know, we did this same Social Pinpoint site, and we literally got, I think we got like 150 or so comments on that, of people very specifically having ideas on where, you know, they would recommend or not recommend chargers be, or, you know, where there might be data on the map that's out of date or incorrect, or just, you know, recommendations and thoughts on, you know, different shopping centers and things like that that might be better or worse for thinking about implementation. So it's a really strong tool, and we, but it's only as strong as how many people use it. So please use it. And then we can move on to the next slide. And there's also a project website that is on the COG website that just talks a little bit more about the background of the project, looks at some of has some of the information that that I presented earlier in a little bit more detail, has some of the documentation that we're working on as it gets finalized, has contact information, also has a link back to that social pinpoint site if for some reason you can't find that link. And it will be, continuously updated throughout the project. So again, you'll be, Alex has provided the link to that as well in the chat. And again, we will be, following up with everybody who we have these meetings with, whether you attended or were unable to attend, so we can get as much input as possible. And I think, is that the last slide, or is there's one more. This just shows myself with DKS as the project manager, Isaiah as the project manager on the COG side, and then Ilse, who is leading our engagement efforts. So you can contact any of us if you have questions or comments. Feel free. This, again, we will be providing a PDF version of the slideshow to everybody who attended and everybody who was unable to attend. And yeah, we hope to get as much engagement after these meetings as we can. We hope the engagement continues. And Isaiah, I'll throw it back to you if you have any closing thoughts. It looks like we're going to finish a bit early because we didn't get quite as many questions as we had allotted time for. But yeah, do you have any closing thoughts?
Yeah, we'll just thank you for the presentation, all the information, and thanks to everybody for joining us. And I just encourage you once again to check out the project website and the social pinpoint as sort of the heart of this exploratory period of the project. So thank you again.
All right, well, thank you everybody for coming. And again, if you were just in listen only mode on this one, if we can talk you into reaching out via email or the Survey Monkey, we greatly appreciate it. All right, well, thanks everybody.
Thanks everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, thanks. Okay, bye-bye.
See you.